The tank alarm screamed before I even opened my eyes. I was 3 days old and already drowning. Water poured through a crack in my holding tank on Dock 9, and nobody came running. That was the first thing I learned about being alive. When you are small and broken, nobody runs for you. My wing had come out wrong, folded, twisted, useless. Every hatchling around me had wings that opened like silk sails, and mine hung like a crushed leaf. The buyers who walked the rows every morning barely looked at me twice. I heard them talk about me like I could not understand a word, though I understood every single one. Not worth feeding. Send that one to the scrap pens. Nobody wants a dragon that cannot fly. The water kept rising in my tank that morning, and I screamed until my throat burned, and still nobody came. I thought that was how my short life would end, in a cracked tank on a forgotten dock, with no name and no wings and no one who cared whether I lived past sunrise. Then a hand broke the surface of the water and pulled me out. The hand belonged to a man named Oliver. He wore a stained work jacket with grease down one sleeve and a tool belt heavy around his waist. He was not a buyer. He was a mechanic, one of the quiet workers who fixed pipes and engines and never spoke more than he had to. He held me against his chest, checked my breathing, wiped the water from my eyes, and said nothing at all. Not one word. He simply carried me to a dry crate, wrapped me in a cloth that smelled like oil and metal, and sat with me until my shaking stopped. I did not know yet that silence could feel safer than 1,000 kind words. The dock owner found us an hour later and told Oliver to put me back before he lost pay for wasting time on damaged stock. Oliver did not argue. He simply reached into his jacket, pulled out every credit chip he had saved for new tools, and placed them on the counter. The owner laughed, took the credits, and told him he was a fool for spending real money on a broken dragon. Oliver did not answer that either. He picked up the crate with me inside it and walked straight out of the dock without looking back. I thought my danger had ended there. I was wrong. 2 nights later, a storm hit the outer rim of the station, where Oliver kept his small ship docked. Not a rainstorm, a debris storm. The kind that tears through old stations when the shields fail. Alarms tore through the corridors. Metal groaned above us like something alive and in pain. Oliver grabbed me from my crate and ran, his boots slamming against the shaking floor, sparks falling from broken wiring above our heads. I had never felt fear like that before. My tiny heart slammed so hard I thought it would break through my chest. He reached an escape pod just as a support beam crashed down where we had been standing seconds earlier. He threw himself inside, curled his body around me to shield me from the impact, and slammed the hatch shut as the pod launched into open space. For a moment there was only silence, and stars, and my own frightened breathing. Oliver held me close and, for the first time, spoke to me directly. "You are safe now," he said. His voice was calm, low, steady, nothing like the harsh voices on Dock 9. "I promise you that." I did not understand human promises yet, but something in his voice made my fear loosen its grip. The pod drifted for 6 hours before a patrol ship found us and towed us to a repair station near the edge of a quiet system. It was smaller than Dock 9, cleaner, with workers who moved with purpose instead of cruelty. Oliver found work there fixing engines while he figured out what to do next. He kept me close the entire time, feeding me by hand, never once complaining about the cost or the effort. One evening, while repairing a cargo hauler, Oliver noticed something odd about my wing. He studied the crumpled shape for a long time, running his fingers along the twisted bone, the way he studied broken engine parts. Then he did something no one else had ever done for me. He decided to fix it. He spent every free hour building a wing brace from spare metal, shaping each piece by hand, testing the bend and flex against his own arm before ever trying it on mine. He worked in silence most nights, only humming softly under his breath, focused the way he focused on saving a dying engine. I watched him with wide eyes, amazed that anyone would spend so much effort on something the whole galaxy had already thrown away. But danger was never far behind us. A group of raiders had been tracking cargo routes through that system, stealing ships and supplies from smaller stations. Oliver's repair station sat directly in their path. One night, alarms blared through the halls again, sharp and urgent, warning everyone that unknown ships were approaching fast. Oliver did not panic. He grabbed his tools, grabbed me, and moved quickly toward the emergency dock where his small ship waited. Around us, workers scattered, shouting directions, sealing doors, powering down systems to stay hidden. My heart pounded against my ribs as bright lights flashed through the station windows, the raider ships closing in. Oliver reached his ship just as the first tremor of impact shook the station, an explosion somewhere in the cargo bay lighting up the corridor behind us. He pulled the hatch shut, strapped himself into the pilot seat, and set me safely inside a padded storage compartment beside him. "Hold on, Kit," he said, using the name he had given me weeks earlier. "Just hold on." The engines roared to life. Outside, 2 raider ships turned toward us, weapons charging, their lights sharp and threatening against the black of space. Oliver's hands moved fast across the controls, weaving the ship through a narrow gap between 2 broken satellites, using the wreckage as cover. My whole body shook with every turn, every burst of speed, every flash of light outside the window. For a moment, it looked like we would not make it. One raider ship closed in fast, matching our speed, gaining ground. Oliver gritted his teeth, cut the main engine power for a heartbeat, then redirected everything into a sudden burst that flung us sideways into a debris field too dense for the larger raider ship to follow. Metal chunks scraped along our hull, sparks flashing outside the window, but we pushed through, faster and faster, until the raider ships fell behind and finally turned away. Silence returned. My heart still raced, but the danger was gone. Oliver breathed out slowly, resting his head back against the seat for just a moment before turning to check on me. He opened the compartment, lifted me out gently, and held me the same way he had on that very first day, checking that I was safe, unharmed, still breathing. "We made it," he said quietly. Both of us. In the weeks that followed, life grew calmer. Oliver finished the wing brace, testing it patiently, adjusting the fit until it moved smoothly with my body instead of against it. He never rushed the process, even when I grew impatient and tried to flap before I was ready. Every evening, in the quiet hours after his shifts, he worked a little more, speaking softly, encouraging me the way no one else ever had. Finally, on a clear night above a small quiet moon, where his ship had docked for repairs, Oliver carried me out to an open platform under the stars. He fitted the brace carefully along my crumpled wing, checked every strap twice, and then stepped back. "Try it," he said. "Just try." I opened my wing, fully, for the first time in my life. The brace held strong, flexing with each movement, letting the air catch beneath it in a way I had never felt before. My legs lifted from the platform, my heart raced, not from fear this time, but from something new entirely. I rose higher, wobbled, caught myself, and rose again, gliding in a slow circle above the platform, while Oliver watched from below, his arms crossed, a small proud smile breaking across his tired face. I flew. For the first time since I hatched into a cracked, flooding tank on a forgotten dock, I flew, free and steady, under a sky full of stars, because one quiet man had decided that a broken wing did not mean a broken life. When I landed beside him, breathless and shaking with joy instead of fear, Oliver knelt down and placed a gentle hand against my head. "I never once thought you were damaged," he said. "I just thought you needed someone patient enough to notice." I did not have the words back then to tell him what that meant to me. I only pressed my head against his hand and let the warmth of that moment settle deep inside me, a feeling stronger than every cruel word from Doc 9 combined. Years later, when other creatures ask me why I trust humans so deeply, I tell them this story. I tell them about the flooding tank, the cruel dock owner, the storm that nearly crushed us, the raiders who chased us through open space, and the quiet man who never once raised his voice through any of it. I tell them that courage does not always look like shouting or fighting. Sometimes courage looks like silence, patience, and a steady hand reaching into dark water to pull something small and broken back into the light. Oliver never asked for thanks. He never asked for anything at all. He simply saw a hatchling that the whole world had given up on, and decided, quietly and without hesitation, that I was worth saving. That decision changed everything. And every time I stretch my wing wide and rise into open sky, I remember that somewhere far behind me, on a forgotten dock full of cruel voices, a tiny broken dragon once believed no one wanted her. She was wrong.